This week on Filthy Hope.
And I quizzed him and I said, do you feel unsafe? Is that why you have to carry one? He said, oh no, if something happened, I could stop a disaster because I'm carrying. I could kill that person. If somebody tried to kill somebody in the room, then I could defend myself and my family. That's why I carry. I said, but what if you all didn't carry? Then you wouldn't have to do that thing. It's my Second Amendment right.
Yeah.
And then Rob sort of kicked me under the table as if to say, shut up.
Yeah.
And so I sat down, I started to feel really comfortable and I went, oh, this is really great. This is, oh, okay. So yeah, I'm settling in. Then the preacher gets up and I've decided, after hearing him, that I've decided he's obviously on the payroll of the politicians.
Right.
Because he was delivering a rhetoric that was not founded biblically. Mm-hmm. And he flipped a Bible passage and slammed politicians and lumped communists and socialists into the one category, like they're the same, and had the congregation going, yeah, at the right time, which was I felt like I was at a political rally.
Welcome back to another episode of Filthy Hope. If it's your first time here for whatever reason, welcome. We're so glad you found us. My name is Jonty. I'm your host, and I'm joined by my co-host, Rev Ness.
Hello.
How's it going? We're back in the studio.
I know, and I've got a little mate with me today. Yeah. This is my little rat on my shoulder. This is Remy.
So for those who are just listening, you've got a plush Remy the rat from Ratatouille.
Hi, Jonty. Yeah, he's lovely. Look at him. He's sitting on my shoulder, brother.
So I've never seen you wearing a hat before.
Yeah.
But I'll have to go back and watch previous episodes to suss out if you've had Remy under a hat doing the podcasting for you. You know
No. But I love him. He's so beautiful. I chatted to him all the way through Disneyland, but we'll get there shortly.
Yeah. So you've been away.
Yeah.
People may not have noticed because episodes have continued to come out. But you've been away for, how long were you away for?
18 days.
18 days.
Yeah, visiting Rob's fam.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool.
So the focus of today's episode is going to be your trip and some of your experiences and unpacking
post-election, because I arrived just 2 days after the presidential election.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think was it 2 or 3 weeks ago now when this comes out, we talked about evangelism.
Yes.
And I think possibly a lot of what we avoided that week is what we might be getting into this week a little bit. So feel free to jump back and listen to that episode on evangelism if you missed it, because I'm sure there'll be some follow-up on that. But before we dive into that...
Got Event Central, brother?
Got Event Central, yeah.
Yeah, go. Go, give it to us. Show me the music.
So my Event Central for this week comes from having been in the car a lot the last week or so.
Yeah.
So in particular, me and my fiance were down in Jervis Bay in the South Coast.
Love that spot.
Over the weekend. Lovely spot. Really, really nice. The weather was amazing. It's 3 hours in the car, which, whatever. Who cares? You learn a lot about people.
Like your fiance or other people?
No. You learn a lot about how... I feel like you get a good read on someone by how they drive.
Oh, yeah.
I have a very specific Event Central. When you've got 3 lanes that go down to 2.
Yep.
And the one on the left...
Yep.
The leftmost one is the one that shuts down and merges. And you've got 2 lanes that are backed up, stopped or bumper to bumper, and everyone's doing the right thing.
Right.
Everyone's just chilling in those 2 lanes. It's going to take a while. Traffic's traffic. You deal with it. Every so often, you get someone flies up the inside on the left-hand lane and then sits there with their right indicator on waiting to be let in.
And you've waited patiently doing all the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you
And
do, actually, by the way?
I swear.
Yeah? Do you give them the finger?
No. Okay, so here's the other thing is I never give the finger. If I do feel like
Yeah.
someone's driving deserves a physical
Yeah.
reaction, it's either just a simple thumbs up
Yeah.
or if I want to be really passive aggressive,
Yeah.
a thumbs up
Yeah.
that then turns to a thumbs down.
Oh, that's so polite.
Yeah.
Do you double flash your lights?
I don't let them in.
Oh, you don't let them in?
Why am I going to let them in? No. I've done the time. I've been sitting here waiting.
You're an asshole.
Someone else can let them in.
Oh, you won't. You refuse to let them in.
Do the right thing. Just join the queue when you can.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's hilarious.
I feel like I'm definitely not alone in this.
Okay, let me do Event Central
Okay,
now.
sure, yeah.
Play the music. Jonty, you know what I hate?
Yeah.
I hate it when
I don't know where this is going.
when you've made a mistake and you're coming in and you're merging in from the left and you've made an error and you didn't realise that you should have joined the queue earlier. You're not being an arsehole. You just literally made a mistake. It's one of those mornings, something's happened at home and you've just stuffed it. And then you're being nice and you're being polite and you put your blinker on and you kind of beg the Jonty who's behind you, who's got the shits, who's giving you the thumbs up that turns to the thumbs down. And all I want to do, it's not going to be any skin off your nose. It's not even going to cost you 2 seconds in your day to just let me in front of you. I would blow you a kiss. I'd go lovey, love, love, give you love. And you just bloody won't. Is that right?
Well,
Is that what you did to that poor person?
I was the 7th or 8th person in a row that did it to that person.
Oh,
so I feel like that's why I say
Jonty.
it's not just me.
Oh.
Because, okay, there's a difference between making a mistake
Yeah.
and you see, like that often happens. They'll go,
Yeah.
oh crap,
Oh,
and
quick,
then they'll slow
quick.
down. They'll put on the
Yeah. Oh,
they'll
please,
put on the
please.
blinker well before they reach the spot.
'cause
at
you've
which-
realised.
Yeah, you realise, and that's let them in. No worries.
100%.
It's the people that they know what they're doing.
Deliberate.
They go flying up there. And it happened to me. It was the person behind me, so they were in the middle
So
lane.
came out and
So they
pushed
duck out
through.
into the left lane, zip up,
Yeah.
and then 2 minutes later, I see them sitting there trying to get back in. I'm like, oh no,
And you know what I'd do?
yeah,
I'd go thumbs up and I'd turn it to thumbs down.
yep,
And I'd say, I'd wind down my window and I'd say to him, mate, driving like that, you're not going to make it to Christmas, you asshole.
yeah. And I'd say, have a nice day.
Yeah, bye. Jesus loves you.
Yeah, drive safe. So that's my bad set. People driving like
I love
dickheads.
it. Yeah, I love it. How we all get it. Play the music.
Okay, I've got that out of my system.
Oh,
I feel
do
like
you
that was
feel better?
pent up because I had a really rough traffic-filled trip back from up the
Oh, I'm
coast
sorry.
the other day.
Yeah.
In fact, it was time of recording. It was yesterday. I got that out of my system. I feel
Oh,
much
it's
better.
good. I'm
So
glad.
I feel like I'm in the right headspace now.
Good.
Tell us about what you've been up to.
Oh, mate, we flew to Disneyland. Disneyland.
For people that maybe are newish here,
Yeah.
that haven't heard you talk about this, why Disneyland?
Because I'm obsessed.
How many times have you been?
Look, it's got to an embarrassing level.
Yeah.
I've actually lost count. I think it's 28 or 29.
Yeah.
It's something like that. I don't know. I've stopped doing it now because it feels dumb now.
Yeah.
I used to wear it like a bit of a badge of honour.
Yeah.
But now I'm a bit embarrassed.
When did it switch over from being, was it 14? You were like, yes,
Yeah.
number 4.
No, it was Ginger. It was
Okay.
Ginger because she'd been most years of her life, and we get up to they're, finishing high school and they're rolling their eyes, and it's now Disneyland's not cool anymore.
Yeah.
And I behave like I'm 5, and that my children take me to Disneyland because they're like the adults and I become like the child, and they laugh at me and take photos of me being like a child because I really do. It is like a happy place for me. It is, I get so excited. I feel I have zero anxiety in that space. I feel just at peace. I know that's weird, but I really do. And I just love going there. It's just true. They're tagline is the happiest place on earth. And there's lots of other joyous places that I've experienced, and I've had certainly really joyful experiences being a Christian that trump Disneyland. But I've got to tell you, it delivers time and time again. And this year was exceptional because we nailed it right after Halloween and just before Thanksgiving. Man, it was great. The only thing we sacrificed was the parade. 2 o'clock and 9 o'clock parade, but I've seen that 27 or 28 times, so I'm fine. So it was good because it meant there was low queues to get onto rides. The longest I ever waited was 40 minutes. We nailed everything. And shout out, the Star Wars land over there is exceptional.
Galaxy's Edge, is that what it's called? Yeah.
It's so good.
I've heard cool things. Yeah.
Oh, it was just, I was a gunner in one of the rides, blowing the guns.
Are you a big Star Wars person?
No.
Yeah, wow. So just
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved the rides so much in that part of the park that I want to go back and watch the movies. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It was
that's
so good.
Definitely part of their business model.
It was a great experience. Yeah, I really loved it. We all had the best time, and we got off the plane 13 and a half hours and dumped our bags, had a quick shower and hit the parks. So we just went solid for a day and a half.
Yeah.
And then on the plane over to Ohio. And everything changes when you get to Ohio.
So you've got family there?
Yeah. And the family are amazing, and we hadn't seen the family since Ginger's wedding. But it's really culturally different.
How long ago was Ginger married?
2 years.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Even in 2 years, I imagine a lot has changed culturally.
Well,
maybe not, but that'd just be my
well,
assumption.
we were right just 2 days after the election.
Yeah.
So there was Trump and Vance signs everywhere. Now, Ohio and Kentucky both voted Trump and Vance, and our family, Kathy and David, must have been the only people that voted Harris. Felt like in the whole state. I don't think we saw any signs for Harris anywhere. They were in their gardens. They put up the big Trump and Vance signs, and then picture this: then the houses have big American flags hanging from near their garages. They come off and they hang down, and there's signs like "In Trump We Trust," and things like freedom, liberty, or God, freedom and liberty, Trump. I even saw on a hat Jesus and Trump on a hat.
Yeah.
In Trump Tower, a woman sitting with her perky boobs and her filled up lips. She was doing an Instagram reel for people that she thinks care, and she's got her Trump and Jesus hat on, sitting on the edge of a chair in Trump Tower under the big Christmas tree, doing a bit of a live feed on her phone, thinking that whoever's watching cares about her. It was so interesting. Everywhere we looked in Kentucky and Ohio were these signs: freedom, liberty, Trump.
I'm looking at the results in Ohio.
Yeah.
55.2% for Trump and the Republican Party at bit over 3.1 million votes. Democrats only 43, so pretty comprehensive in Ohio. And what was Pennsylvania, did you say?
No, Kentucky.
Oh, Kentucky. Sorry, I was previously looking at Pennsylvania, that's why. Kentucky, I'll just pull that up as well. So even more so, Kentucky 64% for Trump, so heartland of Trump supporters.
Definitely. Very much a red state. And the thing I probably really was shocked about was we had dinner with a friend of Rob's that he hadn't seen for a really long time, and this guy had served time in the military. He'd been in Iraq, and he was a serving army person and seen some horrific stuff.
Yeah.
I won't go into any of that. But he has in his home, in his locked up safe, 52 guns.
Wow.
All different varieties. And he was talking about it with such pride to Rob. The only way I could relate to it was a little bit like Rob talks about his Harley. Harley Davidson.
Yeah.
Rob talks about the pipes, he talks about the chrome, he talks about all the bits on the bike.
It's his thing.
He loves him.
Yeah.
But Rob's mate was talking about his 52 guns, like Rob talks about his bike.
Wow.
And I sat there shocked listening to this and kind of didn't want to I didn't want to agitate. So I wanted to just not have an opinion.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel like I was worthy of an opinion, although the conversation made me feel quite anxious.
Yeah.
Because I said to him, can I just ask, are you carrying tonight? Because in that state you can carry concealed weapon. And he said, no, I didn't carry tonight, Vanessa, because I knew that I was coming to be with you, and I know that you're from a socialist country and you don't do guns. And I said, oh.
Australia, famous
socialist country. Yeah. Like that's a bad thing, that we care about our people.
Yeah.
And so I was shocked by that. And then I quizzed him and I said, how many people are carrying? He said, 1 in 2 carry a concealed weapon.
Yeah.
And I said, and as I looked around the room, I then started to become panicked women have got them in their handbags. Men have got them down the back of their jeans in a holster. Some have them down on their thigh, down their leg, I thought, that made me feel sick, Jonty. And he said, and I quizzed him and I said, do you feel unsafe? Is that why you have to carry one? And he said, oh no, if something happened, I could stop a disaster because I'm carrying. I could kill that person. If somebody tried to kill somebody in the room, then I could defend myself and my family. That's why I carry. And I said, but what if you all didn't carry? Then you wouldn't have to do that thing. It's my Second Amendment right.
Yeah.
And then I just knew, Rob sort of kicked me under the table as if to say, shut up.
Yeah.
I found that quite disturbing. So then we go to leave this really lovely restaurant in Ohio, and I was really stressed walking to the car park. It's pissing down with rain, it's cold and dark, and I thought, oh my gosh, half of these people around me have all got a gun. I'm stuffed. I just have to hand over everything, and that's what I do. And it was really disturbing. And then what made it more disturbing is we get to the car, and Rob's really quick to get us in the car. And Joel and Ginger are kind of fumbling to get in the back of the car because they've made it to the car and they're not aware that there'd be any issue about, okay, we've now got to the car. We've got to the car. But Rob then launches and said, for fuck's sake, get in the car. Lock your doors. Let's go. We've got to go. Quick. This is the most unsafe place you could possibly be right now, is in a car park under Paycor Stadium, which is the Bengals' home, can I just say.
You go to the game?
Yeah, we did.
Nice.
And he was really anxious about that. He said that's where often people will get held up, is in their cars because you're stuck in the car park. So that was weird. That was the only time on this trip that I felt nervous, and I think it was probably because it was manufactured in my own brain because of the conversation that we had over dinner. But it was alarming to think that many people carry a gun and they're really cool with it. Like, this is no problem, Yeah. Interestingly, we went to see a game in Indiana, and we went to see, I should know the name of the teams, the Chargers versus the Bills. And I was a bit jet lagged, so I was a bit tired, and I got myself a foam finger though. I've always wanted a foam finger. It was fantastic.
Did you get it home, or is it?
Yeah, I got it home. Nice. Yeah, foam finger. And every time I heard touchdown, I'd open my eyes and go, It was so fun. That was cool. Except that you can't take any bags into the stadium unless they're plastic. So I made this assumption that people must carry Ziploc bags to put all their things in. So I had a big Ziploc bag, the big ones that you can get for
like the sandwich
baked dinners, but a big baked dinner one. Yeah. I put my purse and my things in it that I needed to carry, and they sell in department stores handbags for women that are plastic, thick plastic.
Like see-through.
See-through that you take to the games. Like it's an item of fashion that women have for games. And it was super interesting because I made a comment to somebody in the store where I realised they were selling these handbags, of which I didn't buy one. And she said, no, it's really good. I love going to the football because it's a place I feel really safe.
Wow, yeah.
You have to go to the football because it's like you go through security screen, and you can't pack. You can't take a gun in there. So everyone sits there feeling really safe. And, interestingly, in New York, the theatre was the same. I saw the Radio City Rockettes and we all went through security as in like checkpoint at an airport.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So they sit there and they go like a breath of relief. That
no one's
packing.
Yeah.
No one can shoot you.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine living like that, John T.
I had this really interesting experience listening to... So this film came out 2-3 years ago maybe, called Nishram, which is Martin backwards, which is the nickname for the young man who perpetrated the Port Arthur massacre in Tasmania. And the film's about...
Martin Bryant.
That young man and the build-up and like what his life was like leading up to the massacre and what kind of...
led to it.
I would recommend it if you're up for it. It's a really confronting film. It doesn't, for those worried, there's nothing in the film of the actual massacre. It's all about what leads to someone doing that. The point being, there's this scene where, because at that point in Australian history...
we hadn't experienced that stuff, had we?
But weapons and firearms were available to buy. We hadn't had the...
Amnesty?
The Howard
hadn't
government...
We?
No, so the Port Arthur massacre is what led to that.
I didn't realise that.
So there's a scene where this... I can't remember how old he is. I think he's 19 or 20 at this point. Walks into a firearms store and he's clearly a troubled, disturbed young guy, and all these firearms start getting taken out and put on the table. Oh, you want this one? Yeah, this one's good too. What about this? And they're talking like a little bit like you were saying with how Rob talks about his bike and his mate talks about his weapons, his firearms.
Yeah.
And when you watch the scene, it's horrific.
Yeah.
It's like it makes you feel so dirty and like how easy it was for someone like that to get weapons. It's an Australian film, written and directed by an Australian. It plays in the States.
Does it?
Well, because it got a wide release.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to this interview between the director and one of his producers about how that scene plays completely differently. You watch it in Australia, like Australians have this real sense of
guttural upset.
It's horrific.
Yeah.
America, what's the issue?
I know.
What's the issue?
And I can tell you about that.
Because that's and that was really eye-opening for me because not having went to Disneyland in LA when I was 6, maybe 5. That's my only experience of going through the US. And so you see a situation like that where there's just weapons everywhere and so easy to access.
Oh, yeah.
But for US audiences, they were like, yeah.
Yeah. And the problem is?
Problem is?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that really, really disturbed me. Like, is that your experience as
100%.
well?
100%. So Joel had never been into Walmart. That's Ginger's husband.
Yeah.
So, we'll take Joel into Walmart. And I don't think Joel really believed that you could buy pump-action shotguns in Walmart or pistols or anything you want. You pick. You've got... Just like I'd go and look for shoes, heels, court shoes, joggers, whatever, you can get the full experience of guns just in Walmart. And the full experience of camo just in Walmart, which is just like a mighty big Kmart.
Is there any form, and just purely because I don't know, is there any like you have to have a license or...
No, just ID, brother.
just ID.
Yeah. It says, I looked that up actually. Ohio is a traditionally open carry state. The open carry of firearms by those who legally possess the firearm is a legal activity in Ohio with or without a licence. It is legal for a person to carry open loaded handgun in a vehicle without a permit as long as they are eligible to receive a concealed handgun licence. I think you can be 21.
Okay. Yeah.
Or 18. Or
That's
I want to get that right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, 18 to 21,
Yeah,
you can carry one. Yeah, I think you can get a gun before you can drink alcohol.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Can't drink alcohol till you're 21, but you can get a gun because you can go hunting and go, hunting deer, which is a thing.
Well, even like my fiance's, one of her family members, her cousin's now husband, lives in what is not quite country Australia, but regional. And it lives on a farm, or grew up on a farm with firearms, because being on a farm,
animals.
You own, with working with animals, you own a shotgun, and other
snakes,
similar firearms, and the experience of suddenly knowing, like being at a place going, oh yeah, there's a gun in this house. Yeah. Even that, I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But the difference there being that he has a license.
Yeah.
And understands the risk involved, and actually it was an interesting conversation to have about what that's like, and the having to weigh up those risks whenever it gets taken out, which even that was really confronting for me.
Yeah, I know.
I can't even
really
imagine.
relate to that. Yeah. I mean, when I married Rob, I knew that he had guns and he couldn't bring the guns back into Australia, but he grew up with them as well on a farm, and Rob was a bow hunter. So he used to hunt every season for deer, and he'd fill grandma's freezer up with deer each season.
Yeah.
And there's a quota of deer that you can actually hunt, and people can hunt with a rifle or they can hunt with a bow. Yeah. And Rob loved the sport of bow hunting. It was just not for trophy, but for food.
For food, yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't relate to any of that. I just, I go to Coles for my chicken and my lamb and what have you. I thought it was gross, but anyway, Rob thinks it's a great thing and still does, and defends it fiercely, actually. Super interesting. But to go into Walmart and see the people in the gun aisles, and I just was fascinated. And I can't help myself, Jonty. I kind of want to take the piss, but I'm too scared to, because I don't have any right to, but I kind of want to interview them when I'm there because I want to know how they think and feel. This big jolly guy in his camo, he had his camo boots on and his camo overalls, just like Deliverance the movie, and his camo shirt and his camo big jacket and his camo hat, and he's in there, and I thought, oh, far out, I've got to go and accidentally bump into him, and then he's going to turn around and question me. I'm going to say, oh, but mate, you're in camo. I didn't see you there. So that's what I did. Yeah. I didn't tell Rob I was going to do it. I was just going to, I probably shouldn't have done that, because you never know quite if there's somebody that's unhinged, right? So I did. I just wandered in and I accidentally bumped into him, and I said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. And he said, that's okay, ma'am. I said, you're in your camo, brother. And then I said, you're in your camo, brother. I didn't see you there. And he went, oh. And I thought, oh, thank Lord. Thank the Lord. I kind of had a relief. I said, oh, we don't do that sort of camo in Australia, and you'd be a real hit over here. I mean, people ask you a million questions, You look like you're straight out of Duck Dynasty. And he said, don't you mean Dynasty? And I said, yeah, that's right. Had the goatee, he looked like he was out of ZZ Top. You can picture it, right? Picture it, yeah. 4 sizes too big in his body type. He was a, heart attack waiting to happen.
Big guy.
Big man, big human being, yeah. Yes, it was confronting from that experience, and interesting at the same time to talk to the family about it, because Rob's family, they live in Ohio. This is what they do.
And they were non they voted Democrat.
Yeah,
is that right?
yeah, they did.
I'd be fascinated to talk to them. Or
Yes.
like, did they have any, like, what were their...
Oh, they're a highly educated family. Kathy's a doctor. They care about the health system, and they care about people, and they care about the education system, and they couldn't believe that somebody that was a criminal, as Trump is accused of being, could become a leader of their nation. How could that possibly be freedom and liberty?
Yeah.
You know, so they weren't surprised, but they keep their mouths shut because the majority of their people around them are voting Trump.
On I think possibly future episode of Into the Word, you mentioned that there was an overwhelming sense of peace.
Yeah. So,
my fiance said something to me really confronting, but I think interesting, about a month or two ago, that she thought that the result that would lead to the least amount of violence in the short term was a Republican win.
she was right.
So tell me about that, because
100%.
To me that's really interesting.
So I felt this overwhelming sense of peace. I was worried, and I'd actually said to you before we were going, I was worried if Harris won.
Especially with 1 in 2 people carrying.
Yeah, I just thought that they would be upset, pissed off. They're already, if that many people have voted for him, they are a pissed off collective nation
and
of people.
he's certainly not a leader that advocates for gentleness and peace.
No, there's nothing peaceful. No, that's right.
As we learned 4 years ago.
Yes, but I think that they are so upset with the current state of their country that they want change.
Yeah.
So, you know, hopefully they're going to get change. But the interesting thing is this. I went to church. There is peace in the place. And I went to a Pentecostal church last Sunday, and I thought this is going to be interesting, in the heartland of Ohio.
Yeah.
Right? So Trump land, and it's packed, Jonty. 2 services, one at 8 and one at 10, and it's bumper to bumper.
Big church?
Big church, big Penty church. The thing I thought was so interesting, the first thing I read on the wall when I walk in is about money. First thing I read is about you promised to pledge into this fund of $4.6 million that we need.
Yeah.
It's all about money, and I thought, then I went, it's a bit penty. Yes, okay. It's got Hillsong vibes, talking of money, it's very overt. Yeah. And then we went into, it was really slick, massively slick operation. Went in there, comfy seats, amazing band, great worship leaders, really slick operation. That was all lovely. The words that they sang were felt theologically right to me. Nothing, I didn't recognise any of it, but it was beautiful. And I said to Rob in that moment, and all these camouflage wearing rednecks, was full of them, I whispered to Rob and I said, Rob, even though that Trump's got in, all these Christian people, I think if they believe what they're singing, I think America's going to be okay. There's a lot of Christians in America. Surely the country's going to be okay, I say to Rob. But I said all of that before the preacher got up. And so I sat down, I started to feel really comfortable, and I went, this is really great. This is, okay. So, I'm settling in. Then the preacher gets up, and I've decided, after hearing him, that I've decided he's obviously on the payroll of the politicians.
Right.
Because he was delivering a rhetoric that was not founded biblically. And he flipped a Bible passage and slammed politicians and lumped communists and socialists into the one category, like they're the same, and had the congregation going, at the right time, which was I felt like I was at a political rally. And then it spun all to money.
Yeah.
I sat there and I looked around and I wondered where the heck I was, because I was not, in my mind, in a church at that moment, hearing the crap that was coming out of this guy's mouth. He took the Bible passage and he just did really cheeky stuff to it.
Yeah.
That was just... so many times I wanted to stand up and say what I needed to say, but I didn't. I was too scared because they're all packing guns.
Yeah.
1 in 2 of them anyway, or they're in their handbags if they're a girl.
Yeah.
It was really alarming, deeply alarming. And then after the, freedom, liberty, Trump, that kind of vibe, let's stand and sing. And tap your card on the way out. You tithe. You tap your card. We're $4.6 million and tap your card. And I'm going, oh, man, shit. I felt so sad. I really did. I really did. I kept my mouth shut. Rob just sort of said, shut up. Yeah. Say nothing. Don't whisper. Just go with the vibe. We'll get out and we'll debrief in the car.
Yeah.
And we did. I was really sad. They believe it, Jonty. They believe what's coming out of the preacher's mouth.
Yeah, well, because it's a textbook example when you hear people talk about using scripture with a preconceived political agenda.
Yeah.
But because it's using the language and ideology and rhetoric of religion,
Christianity
and Jesus, it's like you don't ask questions. It's biblical. It's true.
Yeah, the minister's saying it.
That's right.
And hyping them. It was like a hype show.
But and you coming from removed from that context, were able to see that with fresh eyes and go, well, clearly this is being delivered with an agenda, right?
Oh, Rob and I were just appalled.
That's why it's so dangerous, though, is because it's entwined with, and this is where we avoided a few weeks ago the stuff about American evangelicalism.
Yeah.
And I've got an expert lined up to talk about that in January. But like that's why it's so dangerous, is because it's entwined with religious language.
Yeah.
It's delivered with the authority of Scripture and God.
Yeah, yeah.
So, of course, people... Like, I have great empathy and sympathy for people that find themselves a part of that, because I
but they're not critically thinking, Jonty.
But, like, part of it is like...
Are they that dumb?
But if you're being told that is what the Bible says and you're being quoted from the Bible as well, then I kind of, like... I think it's easy to look at it from a distance and go, oh, come on, people, think critically. But if you've been like given that Kool-Aid for that long,
yeah.
At what point are you no longer able to tell the difference between Scripture and a political message?
Well, they're not, because they're
entwined.
The same.
They're delivered with the same authority and the same cadence.
And I wondered if, in fact, these preachers are on the payroll, because
they're on the other way around. They're donating to the Republican Party. Like
maybe
I would like that's very very common.
It was frightening. I was really frightened, and I said to Rob on many occasions, I'm really glad that we made decisions to raise our kids in Australia. There was many opportunities that we had, and even just before I went to UTC, an opportunity for us to live in Colorado, and it was just a God hair of the moment that God orchestrated something in our life, so we ended up not going. It was that so God that we didn't go, and I just think, I'm so glad our kids didn't get raised there. Really frightening, because whole families are divided by this thing. Even in our auntie and uncle's family, in the uncle's family, his brothers and sisters, he's got like 8 brothers and sisters, and they're divided politically, so they don't talk to each other anymore. Yeah, they're that angry about it. Wow, that it's causing family rifts. And these are, in inverted commas, God-fearing people. That's not.
The closest we get to that in Australia is like I don't know, like hypothetically, your grandpa hearing that you voted Greens.
Yeah.
And they have something critical to say at Christmas lunch,
Right.
and then that's it.
That's
and you
right.
move on.
I think we went past Trump Tower and we went in there, and rightly so, went in there to go to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
In Trump Tower, because I thought that was a fantastic thing to do.
It's a big toilet.
Big toilet. Yep, go to the toilet there. There's all this policing around it, and Secret Service and security everywhere. It felt like its own little city of protection. And it's immaculate in there. And there's plaques to him, and I got a photo next to it, which I took the piss out of because I thought that was hilarious. And went into his merchandise shop, where you can get everything with Trump on it. You can get pajamas. It's
Bible.
Everything, mate. Mate, anything you want Trump merched, you can get it in his own personal shop. The thing I find interesting is that in America, these Americans, and I was watching them, revere him like he is some kind of demigod. Whereas I've been in the airport in Australia and seen Tony Abbott, ex-Prime Minister, ahead of me going through security with no agents around him caring for him, just as he's just an only person, normal person like everybody else, walking through security, and people are just saying, "G'day, Tony. G'day, Tony. Can I have a selfie with you, Tony?" And he's shaking hands with people. And actually, the majority of the people do not give a rat's.
Couldn't care less.
Couldn't give a shit about a Prime Minister, because we don't do that thing.
He comes from Linfield East. Who cares?
Who cares? But he was a Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But nobody gives a shit about it. And I think the US, they treat their politicians a little bit like rock stars, don't they?
For sure.
And they've got a very different take on it. I found that fascinating.
I don't know if this is strictly true, but I wonder if this is a difference between Australian and American politics. Very much in Australia, I find you vote for the party.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter who the leader is.
Correct.
Whereas in the States,
they vote for the leader.
Very much they vote for the leader.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Who happens to be the head of their party.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because it's still very much red or blue, but it's built around who the leader is.
Yeah. I thought to myself when I sat back in that church, back at the church, I tell you, he's got 2 years to deliver before the next set of elections happen for the House. Is it the Congress or the Senate? Has a shift in about 18 months, I think it is. At the moment, he's got ultimate control.
Yeah.
And I think those rednecks they are so desperate for change in that country that if he does not deliver on change, they are going to talk about a pissed off mob of people. Honestly.
Yeah.
Because they have just put all their energy into believing that he is going to literally make America great again. And I've got to tell you, Jonty, having been travelling back and from America for the last 36 years, in the 80s when I met Rob and we were young and travelling there, and America was the leader in so many ways of all things. But I look at how countries like Australia have absolutely caught up, and I think we're the luckiest country. We really are, because we've got some of the great elements of that modernisation that America brought to the world, and we adopted some of those ways, but we do it in a way that isn't, so over the top. Yeah, I came home going, I'm so glad I live here.
Even the way that the government at the time, the Howard government, responded to Port Arthur.
Oh, yeah.
Compared to, it seems like every 30 seconds the conversation restarts again in the US around there'll be another horrendous, entirely avoidable school shooting, for example, and then the conversation starts again, and then it starts again, and then it starts again, and it's this back and forth versus, I think comedy has a really vital, important, like the way that it just cuts through discourse and points out the really obvious. And Australian comedian Jim Jeffries did a famous bit on gun control in the US and the way that the two countries have approached it over the years, and like the response to one of the most horrendous school shootings of which there are many a year, the government meekly goes, maybe we should think about taking some of the guns away, and the response by the public is, fuck off, don't take my guns.
No.
Whereas in Australia,
my amendment right.
One shooting, gun massacre in Australia, and the government goes, right,
amnesty,
give us all your fucking guns right now, and everyone goes,
okay,
yeah, probably fair enough.
Good idea.
Yeah,
That's
good idea.
Good move.
Good idea. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Incredible, right?
I'll link that routine down below because it's actually
thank you.
It illuminates a lot. But the thing that frustrates me more than anything is, and again, I'm speaking in broad terms and in stereotype, but there's truth in these stereotypes because that's the root where they come from and become unhelpful from. But the root of them, there's truth to be found in it, is that the red Republican pro-gun people are also, generally speaking, the pro-life
I know.
people as well. And I'm painting a binary there that it's obviously much more complex than that. But to me, it makes no sense to be so vocally, and to be clear, let me make this absolutely clear, pro-choice people and pro-life people, across that spectrum, no one thinks abortion is a good thing. Just to make that crystal clear, because I think there's a misconception there that people think that pro-choice people are for abortion. No one is for abortion.
No.
But for somehow people are able to do the necessary mental gymnastics to be pro-life in the sense that we need to abolish and outlaw and completely wipe abortion off the face of the earth because children's lives are being taken. Are the same people that are the fuck off, don't take my guns people.
Yeah, that's it.
And you just point to the number of children that are needlessly killed every year, not just in school shootings, but just in gun violence across the country. I don't have anything else to say about that other than I would love to know. I want to talk to these people and because there's clearly something there.
It's their amendment right, Jonty.
Yeah.
It was in the Constitution that they have a right to bear arms. And
is it like to stop the classic
no,
to stop a bad man with a gun you need a good man with a gun?
That's it.
That whole
that's
thing?
it. And I can defend you. If I'm there with my gun, I can protect you.
It's like the school teachers thing.
They should have had guns.
Yeah. Can you imagine what would have happened if the teachers had guns? Yeah, I probably can actually. It would have been worse.
Can you imagine it? Just crazy. I don't know if I could shoot anybody. Even if somebody wanted to shoot me, I don't think I could shoot somebody back. I think I could just do that. Then we went to New York. And we're full of all this gun stuff and redneck thing. We land in New York. I'm thinking, oh, no, everyone's packing guns. Anyway, I just chose not to think about that. And I had the most fantastic time.
Great.
I actually felt the safest I've felt anywhere. And I was in New York. And Rob had recently been there and visited before his father died. And Rob had spent many years in his childhood going back and forth to New York because that's where his dad lived. And so he was familiar with the subway. And I really didn't want to catch the subway. I said to Rob before we left, I said, I'm spending money on cabs. You bloody can do whatever you like. I'm going by cab. I've done the crush in the London subway. I've been stuck. It's just the worst claustro feeling ever in the planet. I'm not doing it. Then Rob convinced me, let me take you on the subway just out of peak.
Yeah.
And then we nailed out of peak. And I'm telling you, it was the most efficient way to get around town. This 120-year-old subway, which would have been so modern in the day, is really efficient, makes our train system in Australia look like shit.
Because it is.
And it was like 120 years old.
Yeah.
These trains run to time.
Yeah.
There's buckets of them. They keep bloody coming. And if one's too full, you just get on the next one. It was just epic. I got so confident, Jonty, that we were travelling in peak in the subway. sandwiched between people. And the moment I thought I'm not on enough antidepressants to not cope with this. I'm going to what if I have a panic attack? I was really anxious. I'd be panicked and lose my shit. Until we're sandwiched into this thing, and Rob's right next to me, and Ginger and Joel, and we sort of cocoon around each other to make like a little thing. And we get to one of the stations and I hear, excuse me, pardon me. There's this kid knee-high to a grasshopper with his backpack on his way to flippin' school in the peak hour subway all by himself with no mum or dad. And all the people are just shuffling, not aggressively. There's like this gentle lean against each other just to let one another move to where they need to go. There's no like urgent crush. It is just so, I don't know, there's just the most interesting vibe that happens there. And I watched this kid getting off the subway and I thought, I need not be anxious for anything. A little 10-year-old knocks this out of the ballpark twice a day in peak. I'm a 58-year-old woman, I can do this shit. At one point I sat down after people started to get out of the train. I found a seat and I grabbed a seat next to a lady and I sat down and I said, oh, babe, how do you do this every day? And she said, well, you know, honey, I'd rather be doing this than sitting up the top in a car, not moving anywhere.
Taxi or something.
Yeah. She said, this is the most efficient way to do it. I said, do you think people actually like it? And she said, look around. Nobody looks very happy. They're all on their phones and they're all listening to stuff because I think they're all as anxious as shit, quite frankly.
Yeah. But like even
listening to the Calm app,
think
John.
about when you have to get peak hour trains into the city in Sydney. Like no one enjoys it. Like
I know,
it's necessary.
But it's so jammed and you're so under the ground, Jonty, that there's a claustro feeling to it that's just could be quite panicking. But anyway, I feel like I smashed it. It was amazing.
I just Googled as well for context that how many people live in Sydney? Like barely any. There's 22 million people in the country. Just in New York City
14
alone,
million, isn't there?
There's 8 million people in New York City.
And I think there's something like 80 million visitors come there every year. It's like a humongous amount of people.
Yeah. The population of the wider metropolitan area of New York is 19.5 million people, which is close to the population of almost, like it's comparable to the entire population of the country that we live in.
Can I tell you, Manhattan, this tiny island, when you think about it, is just packed with humans, all moving at a rate of knots and all knowing where they're going, and everybody was polite and courteous, and it was just a really great experience. Oh, I loved it. Saw the Radio City Rockets.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just great.
Yeah. I've still never been. I'd love to.
You need to go. Go while you're young because it's a young person's place. You know, I looked around the demographic. I found that there wasn't many older people. You've got to move really fast on those streets. You've got to be fit and agile and be able to move at the pace that they move along the street. You can't dawdle. And I didn't see many older people. It felt like it was quite a young population. I don't know, being an old person, how you'd go travelling there.
Yeah. It's actually, I can't remember. I'll see if I can find it and put a link down below. There was an article I was reading about how the population of Sydney is ageing, and this writer was talking about that there's no affordable accommodation within proximity to things like schools, jobs, arts, all of that stuff. Like everyone that, all the younger people are being priced out to other places that are then also close enough to go to school or uni or jobs or things like that. So I wonder if somewhere like New York, because all of that is squished into such a small area. But I imagine knowing not much about this, but like I imagine that accommodation and rent in New York's pretty crazy because it's one of the
really expensive
places. But
I've got a girlfriend that lives there. She lives down in Battery Park, and we visited Lil, and they spend $7,000 USD a month.
Yeah, wow.
$7,000 USD a month on rent for a 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
That's $14,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money to rent. Yeah. You know, that's humongous.
That's crazy.
We think we've got a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's
Was a clanger. It was
an
such
amazing
a
trip. Well,
yeah.
a
It was
eye-opening
great.
trip.
Oh, it was beautiful. It was just happy and joyful, and I felt like I had an urban adventure. That's how I describe it. Rob loves going to the mountains and exploring altitude and vistas and
National parks.
he loves all of that anywhere we go on a big holiday. But this was an urban adventure, and I kept saying to him, babe, this is unreal. Look at this. And I really surprised myself, Jonty, because I didn't get anxious. I only had one anxious moment in Ohio after walking to that car park.
Yeah.
The rest of the time I had an anxious free time. It was such a joy. It really was. And
That's
look,
great.
I've got Remy.
Yeah.
Got my little buddy.
He's been chilling the whole time.
Chilling, mate.
Yeah.
Chilling. I've got Chip over here. Chip. Yep.
Great.
Here's my little mate. Do you know where Chip's from?
Yeah, of course. Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, just checking. And I've got my new ears.
Yeah. How many of those do you reckon you've got now?
I've now got them all over my wall. I've bought these fantastic Mickey holders that rest like that, and they sit on the wall and like an arch, and they sit like that. Oh, I reckon I've got probably about 12 or 14 hanging up there now. Yeah, I don't know. I've lost a whole bunch over the years, and you
have
know,
to keep going back.
That's what I'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how we roll.
Thanks for sharing all of that.
Oh, I hope it was interesting.
Yeah, and if people want to ask more questions of you about that trip, please do get in touch. And also, coming up in the new year, like I said, there's an episode we've got coming out that'll be in depth about the kind of Trumpian Christian evangelical thing, the American evangelical culture, to unpack what that is and what it's like at the moment. I won't announce that until obviously I've got that recorded, so I know it's in the can. But keep an eye out for that in probably January, if not early Feb. That'll be coming out because I find it fascinating.
Yeah, we certainly could get Rob's mate
for sure.
on to talk about how he thinks and feels about it. We'd have to be very careful what we say. But his opinion is his opinion. And
that's right. And part of the, the nature of democracy is I actually think you shouldn't be allowed to vote unless you're willing to accept any of the results.
Oh, I love that.
That is the nature of democracy. And so in the same way, we're two Australians talking about something, a culture and a country that we are not, you obviously having much more of a connection and understanding than I do. They're just our observations and opinions. And in the same way that we respect and honour opinions of those who are different to us, that's something that we should be able to expect from other people as well.
But there's this fear around socialism. There's real fear that the capitalist society of America drills into the people.
Yeah.
They think we are a strange organisation over here in Australia.
Yeah, with so few child deaths to gun violence.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. I'd love to ask them more about what their fear is. Yeah. The amount of times I heard communism and socialism put into the one sentence like they are the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll return to this a bunch of times, I think, in the new year because it's a really interesting topic and a really important current topic.
Yeah.
And will be important to continue that conversation over the next 4 years in particular.
Well, given that we're becoming the largest aircraft carrier here in Australia for the United States.
For the US, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a very present and an important topic to at least be honest
and
about.
And they are our friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we need them to be our friends and allies. That's
right. So, like I said, if people have thoughts or opinions or questions from any of that they want to send our way, please do. Send us an email at filthyhopepod@gmail.com or join the Facebook group.
Yeah. Or if you're an American with an opinion, please let us know. Yeah. Come on.
We want to know more
about it.
We want to know more.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of which, we've got a question from our audience that I thought it'd be good to wrap up this episode with. So this is a change of topic.
Okay, so I'll take Remy off. Remy, sorry, mate. This one isn't for you.
He's got to go back to the kitchen anyway.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yep.
Lots of orders came through while we were chatting. What's the restaurant? I can't remember the restaurant's name. Anyway, Yeah, so this question comes from...
Ratatouille. Was that the name of the restaurant? Ratatouille?
That's the name of the movie, the restaurant that he works in.
Oh, I can see it with the pots and...
It's a
it's a great
big
movie,
French dude.
wasn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember the...
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sorry, Jonty.
So this question comes in response to week 1 of our 2-week episode with our friend James Watson.
Great.
Which, for context, for people that maybe haven't heard this episode yet, James talked about his experience growing up in the Sydney Anglican Church and the culture surrounding that, and having really, really positive, enriching experiences there. But then as he kind of grew older, moving away and kind of replanting now where he's now in the Uniting Church, and just what that experience is like, what he left behind, what he gained, what forgiveness plays in that story as well. That's important context for this question, who comes from someone who asked to remain anonymous. So
Okay.
I'll just read the whole question for us. Towards the end of that episode, James was talking about, quote, the comfortability of certainty, also briefly mentioned in the reel. So he must have seen a reel. James went on to mention that we can't be knowledgeable enough to defend what you have to say and that there is a right answer. So I'm doing a bit of interpretation there that we can't be knowledgeable enough to be able to say that there is a singular right answer.
Okay.
Is something that...
In regards to God?
Yeah. Could you get James to elaborate more, because I'm slightly confused how those are dangerous if we're told to be ready to give an answer that we can have assurance in our faith and hope in Jesus. And then there's a passage here from 1 Peter 3 verse 15 that says, but in your hearts revere Christ as Lord, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have, but always do this with gentleness and respect. So to kind of summarize, and we'll also give James a right of reply as well. So
please,
we'll have James back on the show to talk about that as well. I guess the spirit of the question, and apologies if I'm getting this wrong, but is it a bad thing to be certain and to have answers ready for people? Because I think the critique that James had about some of the Sydney Anglican culture was about generating young people up through the faith to be certain and to have like an ability to talk about faith and scripture with people that is, here is the right answer, here's how you understand scripture, here's how salvation works. Is that a bad thing? I don't necessarily think that it is. And I do think that it is important that as Christians, and this actually goes back to our evangelism episode as well, we do actually have to be ready to talk to people about our faith.
100%.
And have answers. I think, to clarify for the person asking this question, where it becomes a little dangerous, not quite dangerous, but brittle and harsh, is when it actually is then shutting you off to the possibility that there is more that you don't know yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. How does this resonate with you, Ness? Because I know you weren't a part of that episode, so I'd be curious to hear your opinion.
I think, if I'm understanding it correctly, I think there's nothing worse than having a conversation with another Christian they're so dogmatic in their view that there's no scope or room for any experiential knowing from the other. So, for example, if I was to have a conversation about my experience, how the work of the Holy Spirit is and how the Holy Spirit occurs for me. If I was to have that conversation with somebody that hadn't had a Holy Spirit experience like I've had, that person may in fact say that that's not valid or real. I think that's where we fall into problem, is when we criticise one another's experiential knowing of how God occurs for us. Because the Bible is a living, breathing document of that works in and through each of us individually. Yeah? And I think when we become so fixed on what we think is real and true that we fail to hear the other person, then I think we do a disservice to God. Because who are we to speak of who are we? We're not God,
Yeah.
right? Who are we to say that we are, all font of knowledge stops with us? I wouldn't dare say that. There's no way. I'd be too scared. I'd feel like I'd be scared the ground would open up and swallow me in. I take my responsibility of loving God too seriously to be like that. So it's this way or the highway.
Yeah.
And I think some faiths can be like that.
Yeah, because I definitely think that where potential conflict or disagreement can come up is often down to what people do or don't perceive as salvation issues.
Right.
So like in some traditions, the issue of queerness and LGBTQI plus stuff is absolutely a salvation issue. If you're queer and you act on your queerness and you're in a same-sex relationship,
for an Anglican person,
that's a sin and you can't achieve salvation. That's an example of a salvation issue.
For an Anglican person.
Yes. Whereas others don't hold that as in the same
rigor.
Rigor. Yeah. And that's not to say, that's a very complicated and
good one,
complex one to touch on. But like as an example, that's one where depending on who you ask, devoted, faithful Christians will have very different opinions.
And let's face it, who cares?
Well, lots of people do.
No, but in terms of if I didn't mean it like that. If your belief is that though a queer person isn't going to be saved, and the other person thinks, yes, they are going to be saved, it's not worth the argument.
Because, it's when you go into those conversations, if both people go in thinking that they have the ability to change the other person's mind.
I know.
Because I think that they brought up this phrase, the comfortability of certainty, because James was talking about how being certain is very attractive. I think that's one of the reasons why in Sydney in particular, which is our context, the Anglican Church is very, very attractive to young people, because you can go every Friday or every Sunday and receive certainty. And that's really comfortable and really attractive.
Not if you're gay.
Well, exactly. And so
that's not very comfortable or certain.
So what that comfortability does in a situation like that is close you off.
Yeah, it affirms your bigotry.
But from another perspective, you could look at that and say that that's bigotry. From another equally as supposedly biblically based perspective, that bigotry, which my own personal belief is that, that isn't a salvation issue. Queer people, same-sex relationships are just as capable of having loving, mutual relationships that honour God. That's my own personal belief. But for people that don't, like traditionally Sydney Anglican tradition, that is then a salvation issue, which is a certainty, which blocks you off to having relationship or conversation that goes a certain depth with people who hold a differing view on that. And I think that's just the way that is. But the important thing is for people on both sides of, like, for that example, affirming and non-affirming people, for that not then to degenerate into, well, you're a horrible Christian or you're not a Christian and you'll be in hell and I'll be in heaven.
Oh, Jonty, yeah.
Because I think there are things that all Christians can be certain in.
Yeah.
There are pillars of the faith, the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Let's just focus on that. That's a big enough issue.
Yeah.
Isn't it not?
That's right. So, like, and I hope we're answering this question well. If we're not touching on what you actually wanted us to touch on, hit us up again. We'll happy to continue this conversation. There are things that we can be certain in.
Yeah.
I think the issue sometimes is when that gets a little bit too broad, and when we get comfortable and we stop learning, and we stop expanding, then we close ourselves off to experiencing new things and encountering new ideas and expanding our minute knowledge of the infinitely unknowable creator of the universe. I think if we think that we've kind of I've got God in a box. I can understand that, and I'm comfortable now, and I can give that box to other people. That, to me, that's why that's dangerous, because we're diminishing God into something that we can package and give to other people without actually allowing God to do that God's self.
Yeah.
Because I think we talked about this in a previous episode. Like, we get to take part in that, but whether or not we do, God is still at work regardless. God is at work in people's lives, whether or not we take part in it. And when we decide that we are the ones in charge of that, we've missed the point. And that's where it can become harmful to people. And I think that was a lot of James's point.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, we've got to be very careful, haven't we? I think and we can have certainty, most definitely, and there's real comfort in certainty. But we need to be careful how we judge one another. The book's full of don't judge each other, mate.
I'd love us to be certain that we can trust other believers to be loving and generous and graceful and peaceful.
Beautiful.
And advocates of hope.
Amen.
Little mini Jesuses running around.
Yeah,
on earth.
don't you love that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a shame that sometimes you can't be certain of that.
Yeah. Because I don't care who you have sex with. Crazy.
Yeah. There's so many things.
I worry about people that worry about that, that are so worried who people have sex with. I'm worried about them worrying about that.
Yeah.
What's going on for them that they need to try and fixate on that stuff? Who cares?
That's an interesting
business.
I think that's actually, because I've thought about how we could approach that topic.
But it's not your business,
here on the
mate.
show. Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Just get on with loving Jesus. Don't worry about their bits.
There is also room there also to also hold a gospel-rooted sexual ethic.
Yes.
That is rooted in devotion and mutuality and love in a Bible-centric way. I'll leave that there as a little carrot dangling, because that's a whole
that
other...
was a biggie.
That's a podcast in and of itself, I think, and one that, in our context, in the Uniting Church, we actually haven't had the conversation enough as to what a good... It's something that young people need. And if they're not getting it from the church, they're getting it from porn or from someone like Andrew Tate or from who God knows, right? So it's an important conversation to have.
Yeah,
so I'll leave that carrot dangling there.
Oh, Jonty, you just opened a... We were talking about Disneyland. And I'm going back to Remy. Bye, Jonty. That was a great chat until then. Thanks very much. That was awful. I'm going back to my food. I reckon, Remy. Let's go, brother.
Thanks for chatting, Ness. And thanks, Remy, for joining us.
No worries, mate.
If you want to contribute to, I'm sure that we'll in the new year, we'll come around to that.
I hope I haven't wound anybody up.
Yeah. If we have wound you up, get in touch. Send us an email.
Right.
We'd love to hear from you. Join us in the Facebook group down below. We're getting close to the end of the year here in
Ho, ho, ho.
In podcast land or in real life land. So we'll be banking a few episodes for over the January break, so we'll still have episodes coming out for you. But if you send us through any messages in the next few weeks, we may not get to them until episodes that come out in February even.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
If we don't get to it, we will be getting to it, but just know that that's kind of where we're operating.
Because we're moving ahead of time. That's right.
So we can have a bit of a break over the January
Jonty.
season. Next week, we're getting close to Christmas, so we've got a couple of cool guests coming up between now and then we're into Christmas and the new year. So
look at us go.
Whatever you're doing today, hope you have a good one.
Yeah.
Love each other. Be good to each other.
Be peaceful.
Be peaceful. Be
Kind.
open-minded.
Yeah.
Have a conversation with someone you disagree with.
Yes.
Try it out. It's good for you.
And be loving.
And be
Try
loving.
and expand your mind.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for chatting, Ness.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me.
We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
This is a prayer for the people who want to give up, who have been hurt beyond repair and cannot bear to see your face in anything. Find peace in letting go of the guilt that